Dear learners, welcome to video lecture series 14 for BA first semester Political Science in the paper of Introduction to the Political Theory. I am Dr. Deepak Kumar Kashyap, Assistant Professor at Pandit Sundarlal Sarma Open University. Today, my presentations on the topic the origin of the state, particularly on the two early explanation, the divine theory of the state and the force theory of the state. Understanding the origin of the state is an important subject in political science because it helps us to understand how political authority first developed and why people began living under organized political systems. Since ancient times, thinkers and philosophers have tried to explain how the state come into existence before modern scientific approaches to politics emerged. Scholars relied on philosophical, historical and religious explanation to understand the beginning of political organizations. Among these explanations, the divine theory and the force theory are considered two of the earliest traditional theories about the origin of the state. The divine theory suggested that the state is created by the will of the God and that rulers derive their authority from divine power. According to this view, the king or ruler is considered the representative of God on earth and therefore obedience to the ruler is seen as a religious duty. On the other hand, the force theory presents a very different explanation. It argues that the state originated through force or conquest. According to this theory, the strong and powerful individuals or groups imposed their authority over weaker people, and through this domination, political authority and organized state gradually emerged. By studying these theories, we can better understand how early societies explained political authorities and the formation of the states before modern democratic ideas developed. These theories may not fully explain the origin of the state today, but they remain important in understanding the historical evolution of political thought.
The lecture starts from the topic origin of the state, specifically focused on the divine theory and the force theory. These theories attempt to explain how the state come into existence and how political authority was first established in human society. Political scientists have a long debated how the state originated, since the state did not suddenly appear. Scholars developed various theories to explain its origins. Among the earliest and most influential theories are the divine theory and the force theory. These theories attempt to explain how political authority and government first emergence. If we talk about the what is the origin of the state, basically the origin of the state referred to the explanation of how the first political organizations developed and how authority over society was established. Studying the origin of state help us to understand the development of governments and political institutions throughout the history. If we go about the major theories of the origin of the state, there are the four theories. First theory is the divine theory, second is force theory, third is social contract theory, and fourth is evolution theory. Political scientists have proposed several theories to explain the origin of the state. This presentation, we will see that the divine theory talks about that the state was created by the god, rulers govern as divine representative on the earth. Second, fourth theory explained that the state emerged through conquest and domination of weaker groups by the stronger ones. The social contract theory explained that the state was created by a voluntary agreement among individuals which seeking order and protection, where evolutionary theory explained that the state developed gradually and naturally from the family unit and the kingship structure over time. If we talk about the divine theory, basically the divine theory of the state is the one of the earliest explanation of political theory. According to this theory, the state was created by God and rulers derived their authority directly from the divine power. Therefore, people must obey the ruler because disobedience would be considered disobedience to the God. And this theory made political authority a matter of scared duty rather than rational consent and elevating rulers to a near holy status in the eyes of their subjects. If we talk about the historical background of divine theory, basically the divine theory of state becoming enormously influential during the Middle Age, particularly across the Europe, where the debate between who will be the superior, it is either state or church. Understanding the historical context is essential to understanding why this theory was so widely accepted. The During this time, religious played a central role in society, and many rulers claimed that their authority comes from God. And religious institutions also supported this idea, which helped justify the absolute power of king. A key idea within the divine theory is the divine right of kings. According to this belief, kings were God and had the right to rule over their peoples without challenge because their authority came from God, and people believed that they had a moral and religious duty to obey a king. This doctrine gave rulers a powerful ideological weapons against dissent and opposition. The key supporters of divine theory is first is James I of England and second is Jacques Bosset. If we talk about the King James first was the one of the most outspoken defender of divine ruler authority. He argued that the kings were God's lieutenant upon earth and wrote extensively in defense of absolute monarchy. And his views directly shaped the political conflict that would eventually lead to English Civil War, where a French bishop and theologian Bossuet was the foremost intellectual champion of divine rights doctrine in France. In his work, Politics Drawn from the very words of Holy Scripture, he argued that the monarchs derived their authority from God alone and were accountable to earthly power. Basically, these are supporter of the kingship theory of state. The key features of the divine theory. First, the divine theory has several main features. It claims that the state was established by divine will. The ruler act as God's representative on earth. As a result, citizens are expected to obey the rulers without questioning authorities. The criticism of divine theory is that first is no scientific evidence, second, it promotes authoritarianism, and third, it is incompatible with democracy. Many modern scholars criticize this divine theory. This theory also supports the absolute monarchy and discourage democratic participation. Because of this reason, the theory is not widely accepted today. The second theory is the force theory. The force theory have the idea, the origin of state of force theory. According to this theory, the state was formed when powerful individuals or groups used force to control weaker people. Over time, this domination developed into organized political authority. Unlike the divine theory, this explanation requires no subnatural elements. It roots the origin of state, observable human behavior like conflict, competition, and the drive for power. The historical context of the force theory uh, theory suggests that the state originated through violence and conquest. Strong leaders or groups used their physical strength and military power to control others. As these power structures became organized, they eventually developed into governments and its. Throughout history, many of the states were formed through conquest and warfare. Powerful leaders expanded this control by defeating weaker groups and incorporating them into their territories. This historical reality is one reason why the force theory gained attention among the political thinkers. The supporters of the force theory first is Ludwig Gulpovich and second is Karl Katarsky. They support, they believe that the state developed through conflict between social groups and they also studied the role of force and domination in the formation of the state. If we take the historical examples where force in action, the main features of this example in force is historical provides several examples where state expanded or formed through force. One famous example is Genghis Khan, whose military conquest created the West Mongol Empire. Such historical event supports the idea that the force played a role in state formation. Uh, in criticism of force theory, there are three criticisms. Despite its relevance, the force theory has been criticized. Critics argue that it focuses too much on violence and ignores other factors such as cooperation, culture, and social organizations. Modern states are often formed through political agreement rather than the pure force. If we compare the two state origin theory, first is the divine theory and second is the force theory. These two theories offers a fundamentally different answers to same questions and reflect very different assumptions about human nature and the source of political authority. It is, if we talk about the dimension, there are the six dimensions where we can compare divine theory and force theory. In first dimension, in the origin of the state, the divine theory says that it is created by the God as a part of divine plan, where the force theory said that the state created through conquest and domination. Second, in second dimension is the basis of authority. In this authority basis of authority, the divine theory of state said that it is scared and religious, which flows from the God, where the first theory argues that the basis of authority is the physical power and the military strength. The third dimension is the role of ruler. In divine theory, the role of ruler is it is God representative on earth, where the fourth theory argues that it is the strongest individual or group. In fourth dimension, in citizen duty, in divine theory, the citizen duty which obeys as a moral oblique religious obligation, where in fourth theory the submit due to the lack of power to resist. In fifth dimension, there is the key weakness. In divine theory, there have no scientific evidence which support tyranny, where fourth theory it ignores cooperation and incomplete explanation. If we talk about the sixth dimension, the historical context, in the state divine theory, it in source in medieval Europe where it supposed the absolute monarchy. In fourth theory, the example we saw in ancient empires and the military conquests in there. If we talk about this theory, these theories are why relevant in present time. Basically, Basically, if we said that these theories are not widely accepted today, but they remain important in the study of political science because they help us to understand how people in earlier times explained political authorities and how ideas about the state evolved over time. If we talk about the conclusion, to conclude origin theories, first is the divine theory, and second is the fourth theory. The origin of the state has explained there are several theories. The divine theory where emphasized religious authority, while the fourth theory highlights the role of power and conquest. Although modern scholars often prefer more complex explanation, these early theories remain important us for understanding the development of the political thought, where sovereignty, legitimacy, and the proper relationship between the state and its citizens, we can know its development through these theories. Thank you. Thank you so much.